So, you want to be a sorcerer? Well then, let's not waste any more time. In this episode of Character Concepts for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, we're going to be looking at all the different race, multi-class, and stat arrays for possibly one of the more flexible classes, albeit with some limitations. That's right, we're going into the sorcerer. So first off, we're going to look at our ability scores and what do they do for you. As a sorcerer, and to some extent warlocks, you really only need to worry about one stat in particular, and that just so happens to be the charisma stat. This bad boy ups your spell save DC, your spell attack modifier, and much more. The upside of this is if your DM has you roll a lot of charisma checks, mainly persuasion and deception mostly, you're going to be really good in those situations. However, charisma is also a very weird stat in Dungeons & Dragons, and unless you are playing a charisma character, like Bard, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Paladin, then the actual score doesn't matter at all. And even then, for the most part, it doesn't matter at all, because a lot of DMs want to hear what you had to say instead of the rolls, which can be a little annoying. Anyways, your stats in D&D are, of course, Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. So, how do these stack up? Strength isn't really useful for most sorcerers, however it can be an interesting option if you plan to use spells like False Life and Mirror Image, for example, and then get all close and personal with your greatsword, slash any melee weapon that can hurt most things more than a quarterstaff or a dagger. Dexterity, if you played 5th edition, then you quite possibly know what I'm going to be getting at. It's possibly the god stat of 5th edition. It's the one stat you don't want to have a dump in. Because not only does it improve your AC, unless you're wearing full plate, or any heavy armor, but it also improves your initiative bonus, which makes it why you don't want the dump, because it affects the combat turn order, especially for rogues. Constitution. Now we're talking. This is a stat that improves my HP depending on the modifier, not too bad. Constitution is a great stat for everyone in D&D, and arguably very much so for the sorcerer, considering that this class is proficient with Constitution saving throws. And by that logic, you're also proficient with concentration checks made to keep your focus on spells like haste, hold person, etc. And this is why a lot of sorcerers and even wizards that are until they're like a conqueror 10th level tend to go with warcaster, because it gives you advantage on concentration checks. Intelligence. This is another pretty shitty score for sorcerers. Bottom line, it can be good if the DM has a lot of intelligence checks in the session, but even then, you're better off letting the wizard handle this. No matter how high your intelligence is, you're better off letting the wizard handle it, because wizards are a lot better for those roles. Wisdom, this is another somewhat decent score for sorcerer, mainly for those perception checks. Really, overall, it's as decent as it may be. It's still not very good for a sorcerer. It doesn't do anything for you. And we get to charisma. This is a stat that you must have at least at 20 as soon as possible, because you can't call yourself an optimized sorcerer if it's not. That being said, some archetypes don't need charisma as heavily as, let's say, Draconic Bloodline. Wild Mage, for example, really doesn't need a charisma score higher than 18, but even then, charisma is still the main stat for this class. So in all honesty, get this up to 20 as soon as possible. 20, if at all possible, as quickly as possible. Secondly, what spells are the best for you as a sorcerer? Well, this is kind of a loaded question, but it's a good one to work with. So let's start with our cantrips, which are usually the bread and butter of most casters for most of the game. So, Firebolt, for range, of course. Shocking Grasp if you like to get in close, or just want to have something in case something does get in your face and you don't want to use your weapon. Blade Ward, it's a wonky one, it's a dodgy thing there. And we have True Strike, are good examples. Now, here's why I picked these reasons. Firebolt is one of the best damaging cantrips in the game, second only to Eldritch Blast, and is the typical pick for closing the distance. A note, as a sorcerer you gain 4 cantrips at first level, which that's a good reason why. Shocking Grasp is a very good option for sorcerer, wizard, and eldritch knight in general, and tome loss. Simply because of it being a touch spell. Also, if you cast this on a target with heavy armor, it cannot use its reaction, which is really handy for getting away without provoking attack of opportunity. So if you're a sorcerer rogue, you might find this pretty handy. Finally, as a sorcerer, if you took the distance spell, actually sorcerer fighter would find it more handy than sorcerer rogue, shit. If finally, as a sorcerer, if you took the distance spell Matter Magic option at 3rd, 10th, or 17th level, the range of Shocking Grasp goes up to 30 feet instead of just being a touch spell. And Blade Ward. This is widely considered to be the absolute worst cantrip in the game. However, with the way Quicken Spell Meta Magic works, you can either cast this as a main action, and let's say you have Fireball as your bonus action, or Firebolt, yeah, either way, where you're still doing damage and blocking something. Or, if you're a melee sorcerer, you can use this as your bonus action and have False Life, True Strike, or True Strike, for example, as your main action instead. And finally, we have True Strike. This spell is often overlooked in favor of other options, probably because it requires a round of concentration, or maybe because most people don't really know how to get the most use out of this spell as a caster. Simply put, if you take this cantrip, make sure you are a sorcerer, and then twin spell it. It's really strong, and then your next turn you can just twin spell Firebolt. The verdict for ranged is your main picks are Firebolt, Ray of Frost, True Strike, and Shocking Grasp. If you're going melee or just trying to get some decent coverage, your stock standard picks, it will always be Firebolt, followed by Blade Ward, Shocking Grasp, or True Strike, and Poison Spray. Since a lot of things in the game are proficient with constitution checks, Poison Spray kind of loses a little bit of value over things like Shocking Grasp. So, there's that. Now for your first level spell recommendations, it's basically going to be the same for a lot of casters. You generally want Shield and False Life, and Mage Armor if you're multi-classing or don't go Draconic. So yeah, there's that. Most of the time I end up going Draconic Sorcerer anyway, so I don't need Mage Armor in general. But Shield and False Life are your main picks for first level. For second level, I generally recommend Hold Person, Mirror Image, Hold Person Invisibility, etc., etc. There's a lot of good options here for Sorcerer. And for third level, my main recommendations are Fireball and Haste, just in general. Because you can twin spell Haste onto your melee, and they're doing a lot more damage. You're basically making the group's damage better, forfeiting a little bit of your own. And we also have, well, Counterspell is a very good reaction. Same with Shield, and well, Dispel Magic. And the reason I recommend taking these as a sorcerer once you get more spells when you level up is because it also takes some stress off of your clerics. They don't have to constantly be dispelling things. As far as race and multi-class options go, this is going to be a little min-maxy. Sorry. We have Half-Elf, Tiefling, and Variant Human. Regular Human's not very good, but Variant Human's really good. So let's start off with a Half-Elf, arguably the most powerful race for a Charisma skill monkey. So your ability score improvements, or ASIs, are a +2 to Charisma, and a +1 to 2 other stats of your choice, as well as being proficient with 2 additional skills of your choice. And Half-Elf also gets another language, but yeah. Tiefling, their ability score increases are +2 to Charisma, +1 to Intelligence, or +1 to Constitution if you're using the Abyssal Tiefling variant from Unearthed Arcana. Infernal Legacy is the main reason you picked this one. So at third level, you're able to, and this is gone from the Player's Handbook Tiefling, I apologize. But at first level, you gain the Thaumaturgy cantrip. This is basically an entirely fluff cantrip, and that part is kind of shit in my opinion. However, some people will disagree with me on that one. I welcomely encourage it. I strongly dislike this cantrip in every practical situation because it's not a combat cantrip. It's very RP focused, and I usually am in a lot of heavy combat games. So for me, a lot of fluff abilities that other people will find really useful are actually really useless for me, like Thaumaturgy. But you also gain Hellish Rebuke as a once per day second level spell that doesn't consume a spell slot, so you have another good reaction. And at 5th level, you gain the Darkness spell once per long rest, so that part's kind of decent if you plan on dipping into Warlock, to where you can cheese Devil Sight. And then finally, we get to Human Variant. You gain a +1 to 2 skills of your choice, 1 additional skill, and a free feat. I usually always pick up Warcaster or Resilient for a free Wisdom or Dexterity bump and another saving throw to be proficient with. Alright, now we're getting into the multi-class options, and we have about 5 builds. Actually, 5 builds exactly. So, one thing to take note of is Sorcerer is very, very strong in the early to mid levels. So the first through 10th level, Sorcerer is very strong, and and as such, it's generally wise to keep the multi-classing to the later levels when you stop getting a new spell every level and the bulk of your strong abilities have been acquired. Getting 17 levels in Sorcerer for the 4th meta magic is a very potent option to consider. Alright, so first off we have the Blaster, also known as the Sorcerer Warlock multi-class. And you have a couple options. You can take 15 levels of Sorcerer and 5 levels Warlock, which I really don't recommend. You can take 18 levels Sorcerer, 2 levels Warlock, or the more common one, which I'm more prone to doing, is 17 levels of Sorcerer and 3 levels of Warlock. Alright, this is probably one of the most common power dips for any Sorcerer to make, since this allows you to get Eldritch Blast and the Agonizing Blast invocation. This set works best at your 4th level since it allows you to shell out the best cantrip in the game. I can recommend this build for anyone in a combat heavy campaign like myself, and really happens in most campaigns after 10th level. This build does lots and lots of damage. That's the main thing that's really fun about it. It's still got lots and lots of damage, but it can be a little bit min-maxy for most people, and a lot of people tend to not like that. Don't really understand why. For the second one, we have Sorcerer at 18th level and Rogue 2nd level. This one just fucking sucks. Like, there's no nice way to put it. It's generally terrible. Yes, you do have Quicken Spell and Subtle Spell to help you, but it's not going to do much. This one's not viable in any serious situation whatsoever. It's great if you want to sneak around, but even then, you have greater invisibility. Like, sure. Why didn't you take 20 levels into Sorcerer again? Because this multi-class is fucking retarded. Number 3, Paladin to 6th level and Sorcerer to 14th level. With this one, you can start with either Paladin or Sorcerer at 1st level, but you gotta get Paladin to 6th level as soon as possible, then go for Sorcerer until the end. You have extra attack and can still get the second to last Sorcerer's Origin feature by the time you hit 20th level. You only have 3 meta magics, but that's about all you need. Your saves are massive, and you'll be a cool Juggernaut caster. I recommend picking up Warcaster at level 4, or just go Human Variant and have Warcaster from the beginning, and use your ability score at 4th level like you should. And or just get ready to never use a shield while casting sorcerer spells. I recommend personally going for the defense fighting style for +1 AC, as long as you have armor and a shield, I believe. And Oath of Vengeance for the sweet spells and a great channel divinity. I personally like to wear half plate and keep 14 dexterity to keep my saves decent, instead of dumping 15 into strength to wear full plate. However, without 13 strength, you really need to start as a paladin, since you can't multi-class. This multi-class is really, really resilient, and also if you're channeling Blur, you're basically nigh on untouchable. The 4th multi-class option we have is a Sorcerer level 14, Bard level 6. And this one is a really hard one to figure out when you should go Bard. But when you do decide to go Bard, get 6 levels into it as soon as possible in the College of Lore. This multi-class gives you extra skill proficiencies, 2 double skill proficiencies, Jack of all trades, which affects your counter spell rolls, Cutting Words, Font of Inspiration, where you regain Cutting Words on a short rest, Cutting Words on short rest, and eventually Magical Secrets. It's the cheats cannon. If you want to grab a level 3 spell from any spell list, it will give the option to abuse any spell with meta magic. Quick and Empowered Vampiric Touch being one of my favorites. I could go on for a while, but Plundering the Paladin spell list is pretty hot. It's pretty hot too. Personally, I tend to plunder a lot of spells from Wizard, but Plundering Paladin is very good if you want to go Healer, which I see a lot of people go Healer with this, and there's nothing wrong with that. Next up, we have a 1st level fighter and a 19th level sorcerer. Don't know why people didn't just go 2nd level, but that's not my place to judge. Alright, so you have 15 strength and a level in fighter, lets you run around with 21 AC with defensive fighting style, of course, and defensive spells like Blur Up. It will also gut your dexterity saves and stop you from using things like stealth, but if you want to become more of a blaster caster instead of a tricky son of a bitch, this can be very useful, and that's the main strength of the sorcerer rogue, is that you're a tricky son of a bitch. Warcaster is a must-have for this, so again, I really recommend starting off with human variant, because Warcaster allows you to cast a spell that requires somatic requirements while holding a shield. On the whole, these multi-classes can be very interesting, but you are still going to be far more powerful than any of these options as a 20th level sorcerer, period. The way 5th edition is designed is it's not about multi-classing. Multi-classing actually is something that will make you weaker. It gives you a lot of options, but you're still weaker than the full class. And that's something a lot of people need to take in mind when they talk about, like, I want to make a multi-class to get my character stronger. Yeah, at that point you're basically min-maxing, and a lot of people hate that. I personally am all for that because it gets people to think and really understand what they need for that class. What really needs to, like, what I can't stress enough, when Gary Gygax made D&D, he actually did not like the idea of multi-classing. He felt like you should, like, if you pick a character class, you should stick with it all the way through, and I personally agree with that. A sorcerer at 20th level has more features, has sorcerer's restoration, has all the things that make them really good, all 4 of their meta magics, and the maximum amount of sorcery points. So you can really take advantage of your flexible casting table, and just all of your stuff to get more out of your sorcerer. And if you really know how to play a sorcerer, you can actually outdo a wizard. A lot of people say you can't do it, but you can. With your limited spell list of only having 15 spells known, you can by all means outdamage a wizard really easily. And that's the main strength of sorcerer. It's the most damaging caster in the game, whereas the wizard has the most variety in the game. And I'll leave you with these words, with this little bit to think on. Just whenever you make your next character in Dungeons and Dragons, give the sorcerer a look. You might like it. Alright, this has been Kenneth Woody, and I will see you next time when we cover the wizard. Well, or wizard or warlock, your choice. Alright, peace, y'all.